everybody. Thanks for joining me for Gethsemane 7 at 7 in my backyard. I hope the birds and the frogs are not too distracting for you. I'm glad to be joining you this week, and I wanted to talk a little bit about what our guest speaker, Pastor LaVon Dozier, talked about on Sunday morning. If you didn't have the opportunity to join us for that, I just want to encourage you to either go back on Facebook or YouTube and listen to it, or wait for the podcast to come out, because it was a really solid message. He had lots of great nuggets in there that you can really grab a hold of. But there were several things that he talked about I wanted to mention. The first thing is, he talked about us as God's people. We have an assignment now, and it's hard. We're going to have to do a lot of hard things and have a lot of hard conversations. I think a lot of times, at least for me, sometimes when things are hard, I have a tendency to lean towards, well, I'm out of God's will now, or I've done something wrong, or this wasn't what I was supposed to do. And when in fact, probably most of the time, that's not really true. And I think, well, God would never lead me to something hard. Well, yeah, he probably would. I mean, the Bible even says that, basically that hardships are going to come. He tells us that. But he also says that he's given us all the strength that we need to overcome those things. Something else that Pastor LaVon mentioned, I'm going to try to quote him, so I'm going to read this one. It says, God never mentions something that we don't have the capacity of doing. So if he's told you something to do, or if you've seen something in his word to do, then he's already given you the strength to do that. He's given you the capacity to do it. We just have to pay attention to that. I mean, even in Philippians 4:13 in the Mirror Bible translation, it says, in every situation, I am strong in the one who empowers me from within to be who I am. And the next thing I want to talk about, it's going to seem like this is a little mixed up, but I promise I'll do my best to pull it together. The other thing I thought was super interesting that Pastor LaVon was talking about that I didn't know, the Hebrews in the Bible times made tents. That's where they lived, and they made them out of goat hair. And that's a big animal. A lot of people here in the United States might have horses or something like that. Well, they had goats and camels. So they made these tents out of goat hair. And when a portion of the tent got old, like from the weather, I'm sure from rain, from sand, because a lot of it was in the desert. So basically when it got weathered, they would replace a panel. They didn't replace, the entire tent. They didn't wait till the entire tent was, all weathered and stuff. They replaced one single panel. Okay? So what they did was they made a huge panel of goat hair, and all of this goat hair could look totally the same or totally different. And when he was talking about this, and this week my mind has been going, and God's been speaking to me about, how we really are those panels. And it kind of reminds me of God giving us assignments, okay? And sometimes we have continual assignments, ongoing, and sometimes we have assignments that are only for a short period of time. And so what I saw with this was that continual assignments, part of being, a part of this goat hair tent, were that we were to connect to people of different generations, because there's a new panel of goat hair and there's an old panel of goat hair. So we're to connect to different generations. We're to connect to people in a different socioeconomic class. We're to connect with people who are a different race. We're to connect to people who are a different nation. We're to connect to people who are of different thought processes than us. And sometimes that one can be the hardest one, I think. But anyway, that's part of our continual assignment, is to constantly connect to people and keep everybody together, to keep the tent up, to keep it, to keep it a good dwelling. And then he went on to explain how once they take the old panel down, they don't just trash it. It's still used for something else. So that brought me to thinking about how some assignments can change. And so, for instance, I was a youth leader at one time. I taught school for a short period of time. Now I'm staying home with my kids. I've been on quite a few short-term mission trips. Those are short-term or changing assignments. Okay? So we're still involved in the dwelling. We're still involved with God's house, with God's kingdom. Our assignment has just changed. But that doesn't mean that the continual assignment of connecting with others has been forgotten or whatever. It hasn't. So all of these assignments, whether they're continual or whether they are ever-changing, they are all a part, and I'm going to look at my notes, they're all a part of continuing the legacy of the kingdom of God. And they are all to fulfill the 2 commandments that Jesus said were most important: to love God and to love people. So that's what I got out of Pastor LaVon's message, and I hope that some of this made sense to you and rings true with you. And what's most important about that is just being able to connect with people, to love God, to love people. If we truly love God and we truly love people, we will want to have those, fulfill those ongoing assignments to truly connect with others.